Jihad has many facets. Yes, it is a migration jihad. They don't move from the Arab world to Europe. They move the Arab world to Europe. People who are not European change the European landscape dramatically.
There's no way that democracies in the West can stand up against what you've just described, right?
In Islam, there is no way that a Christian is ruling a Muslim. Islam is superior and nothing is above it. Freedom of religion, freedom from religion. In Islam, if you announce that you leave Islam, you know what will happen to you. Conspiracy has the meaning of something which is being done behind the scenes. No, this is being done openly. Politicians want to be either re-elected or elected. So they compete. Who will give more benefits to the migrants? It's not statistics, it's mathematics.
Are you opposed then to Islam?
No. I would even adopt some things from Islam.
There's a question of jihad now or jihad later.
Are you willing to keep Britain as British? Are you willing to keep France as French? We want to keep our country. We want to keep our nation. Want to keep our culture.
I'm Jonathan Sacerdoti. Before we go on, if you enjoy these important conversations, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and that way you'll help the channel to build and you'll hear about these conversations as new ones are published. Professor Mordechai Kedar, thank you for joining me here in Tel Aviv. You're an expert in Arab culture, professor at Bar-Ilan University, and you are perhaps somebody in Israel that understands the Arab world better than most. Firstly, can you tell me how you came to be so knowledgeable on that part of the world?
Well, the key is Arabic. In the high school, some 60 years ago, when I started it, at the age of 13, now you know how old I am, my Arabic teacher was a very attractive man. A group of 13 kids, we fell in love with him, and he taught us Arabic in a very big pressure. So we learned Arabic on the lessons of Arabic. We learned Arabic with the lessons of English. That's why my Arabic is better than my English. Physics, chemistry, biology, all the time we learned Arabic. Also on the bus to the school and from the school. And during the night, we held the dictionary, Arabic Hebrew dictionary, under the pillow, because we knew that the content of the dictionary goes through the pillow into our minds, and it worked. And he actually enslaved us, learn Arabic and Islam. I think if he would do it today, he would go to jail for abusing helpless creatures. But we loved him, and we learned Arabic very good way. And after the high school, we went to the intelligence because our Arabic was excellent. And there I was for 25 years. And then I went to the university.
But your mother tongue is actually Yiddish, right?
Yiddish. Both of my parents are from Poland. But
so you're a white colonizer?
Of course. No. We said we came back to our forefathers' land after 2,000 years of exile. My parents came from Poland, others came from other places. But definitely, this is our country, this is what I believe, this is what I know. Whoever knows some history knows about it, of this country, knows exactly who was here 2,000 years ago. Not Arabs and not Muslims, because Islam was not yet in the world. So, this is my biography in short about Arabic and Islam. And the language is a key. Without the language, you really cannot understand the Middle East in general, Islam in particular. Just like you cannot understand the British people without English, without British English. Or you cannot understand the Italians without Italian, and so forth. So the Middle East is the same. In order to understand what people say, in order to understand what they mean, not only what they say, what they mean, you need to master the language. Otherwise, forget it.
And that understanding of Arabic and Arabic culture and Islam, it's actually increasingly important, not just for people here in Israel, but also, I would say, in the West as well. I hope we can talk a bit about the influence of that. What do you see as being the influence of Islam in Europe, in the United States at the moment?
Well, what we see today is something more or less what we saw 2,000 years ago, when big number of Asian tribes invaded Europe and changed the European landscape, human landscape, dramatically, like the Goths and the Visigoths and the others who came from Central Asia, like to Germany, who were actually Persians to begin with. And they actually changed dramatically the human landscape of Europe. The same thing here is happening today. Influx of people who are not European come either from North Africa, from the Arab world, from the Islamic world, and they change the European landscape dramatically, thanks to a low birth rate in Europe. And while the migrants have a way much bigger birth rate, don't forget also that the European Homo Europos has a very big deficit of people because of the two world wars, which cost the lives of 80 million people altogether, let alone 6 million Jews. I'm talking about British, Germans, French, Russians, others, Polish. Many nations in Europe lost big number of people. If they were living until today, Europe would not need migration. But since this deficit is definitely they need migration, and since the Second World War, you see the sharp decline of birth rate. So these two reasons actually push the Homo Europos to nowhere, because in a generation from today, the birth rate, the size of the European peoples will be half, especially Western European, like Britain, France, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Italy, Greece. Eastern Europe will remain maybe the only Europe in culture, like Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, because they don't bring in migrants and they keep their culture.
And do you see then that influx of specifically, let's say, North African and Middle Eastern Islamic migrants as a deliberate thing on their part?
Look, there are two sides. It's like plus and minus. It's both. The reasons come from both sides. In Europe, the post-colonial feeling, post-colonial sentiments, actually are to open the gates to all those poor nations which we, the Europeans, with the British or the French or the Spaniards or the others, oppressed for, let's say, 200 years of colonialism. So we have to compensate them and to bring them to us, to give them benefits and to give them every possible support, because we abused them, we abused their countries, we stole their treasures, the minerals and whatever we did, or slaves, timber, whatever we took from their countries in Africa, in Asia. Now we have to give them back by inviting them and giving them all the benefits which we can. This is the post-colonial discourse. On the other side, the feelings of being oppressed by the Europeans, like in their part, in the Muslims and the Arabs in North Africa and Asia, and now moving to the countries which oppress them, like Britain, like Belgium, and like France, is more or less we have all the rights to go there and to take their property, because actually it was stolen from us during those years of colonialism. So they absolutely no problem to migrate to France, to migrate to Britain, migrate all the countries of colonialism, in order to benefit from the goodies which the Europeans stole from those countries. So when you see both sides, the one feels guilty and the one feels that he deserves to get this. So here you have plus and minus are being attracted to each other, and migration comes to Europe with all kinds of silly laws, like if somebody sets his foot on any European soil, you cannot deport him anymore forever. And actually, it's a self-defeating set of laws of the European Union, which actually turns Europe into a sponge, which drags migrants, and they come willingly to benefit from the goodies of Europe, from the good weather, and from the generosity of the Europeans. And why work?
But that's a socio-economic interpretation of the migration. But what about an ideological and religious one? Is there an influx with a purpose of Islamization?
Well, for this you have to understand the Islamic mindset. Just to compare, we Jews count history from what we believe was the creation, because we see everything from the global point of view. Since the creation, we started the dates or the calendar, and today we count what we count. In Christianity, the calendar started the 1st of January when Jesus Christ was circumcised, because he became a Jew. It means full Jew, because somebody who was born in 25th of December, this is first day, 25th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 30th, 31st. So the 1st of January is his 8th day. According to the Jewish law, the circumcision of a boy is on his 8th day if he's healthy. So since he was healthy, he was circumcised on the 8th day. So now history can start, because he replaced Judaism with the theory of replacement. So this is when history can start.
How does that fit with the Roman calendar, by the way?
The Romans made fun of April 1st. If you calculate 40 weeks of pregnancy, you come to April 1st. Those who believe that his mother was a virgin. However, in Islam, they didn't start the calendar when Muhammad was born. They didn't start the calendar since he started his prophecy. They started the calendar since the migration, the hijrah, from Mecca to Medina, from his birthplace to Medina. Why? Why the migration from Mecca to Medina is more important than his birth and the beginning of the prophecy, the first revelation. In Mecca, he was chased. He was almost murdered 4 times. He was even out of the margin. He was mocked. He was persecuted by his clan. When he migrated to Medina, he became the master of the place. He became a politician. He became a statesman. He became a commander of the army, and he became the ruler of the place. Definitely upgrade, which was caused by the hijrah, by the migration. This is why the migration actually turned him from somebody who was chased, almost killed, to somebody who can reign a place. This is much more important than the revelation. It means government or governance or having the power of controlling a place is much more important than anything else. And the message is to all the Muslims: migrate and follow the footsteps of Muhammad to wherever you migrate and become the masters of the place. This is the meaning of the hijrah, of the fact that the hijrah means the migration from Mecca to Medina was much more important than anything else which happened during his life. Because the hijrah actually opened the opportunity for him to become the ruler. So migrate to Europe, migrate to Britain, to France, to all these countries, and become the ruler of these places. And then today they do it.
So there's I'm trying to understand this in terms of 2 different mindsets. One is a personal one, that you might see there's a benefit personally for you and maybe your family to migrate to somewhere where you have opportunity. But the other one you're saying is a much more long-term, centuries vision of migrating for your people. And individual migrants may not be motivated by that, I would presume.
Look, this is accumulative. The first, yes, they run away from the atrocities in Libya, in Algeria, in Iraq, Syria. Okay, yes, they do run away in order to save themselves, to have a better place, roof above their heads, good health, good education, good life. Definitely. The first step of migration comes from that motivation. Yet, when they settle in Europe, they start constituting communities, especially those who came from the same land. They tend to live together, like what they call in German Landsmannschaft, means people who came from the same place. And they have their own religious system, and they have their social system, schools, madrasas as they call. They live with each other, and they don't move from the Arab world to Europe. They move the Arab world to Europe. And this is what happens. And when their enclaves are being bigger and bigger and bigger, they feel much comfortable being second generation, which did not experience the persecution or the atrocities or the killing in their homeland. For them to live in Britain is normal. They were born there, or especially if they came in a young age. Okay, so for them the homeland is Britain. In the Islamic view, because of this thing of Muhammad, they don't migrate from the homeland, they migrate to the homeland. The migration is to the homeland, which now becomes Europe. This is their mindset. They don't come temporarily, to gain some money and to go away. This they do in the Emirates. When they come to work, let's say in construction or something else, they gather some money and they go back to India, to wherever they came.
So how do you see this in today's world organizing itself in the West, say in Europe, in the United States? We hear a lot at the moment about the Muslim Brotherhood being a political movement which is cross-national, international, supranational.
Yeah. Look, Muslim Brotherhood is an organization which created more or less 100 years ago, in 1928, in Egypt. That time, Egypt was run by Britain. I would say occupied to a degree. Okay, run by Britain. The British, first of all, are Christians. In Islam, there is no way that a Christian is ruling a Muslim. This is totally impossible, totally unacceptable, totally illegal and immoral and totally illegitimate. Look, in Islam there is a rule, al-Islam ya'lu wa la yu'la alayhi, means Islam is superior and nothing is above it. So how can a Christian order a Muslim to do anything? He's a Christian. How can he maintain power over Muslim? This is something which should be abolished. The occupation of the West. In addition, if a ruler, an Arab ruler or Muslim ruler, is the long hand of the British or the international arena, like the United Nations, he is also considered as a foreign occupation, because he actually the long hand of the world, of the Western world, of the Christians. So, first of all, we Muslims have to get rid of the occupation, because it's totally unacceptable in Islam. This is the first pillar of the Muslim Brotherhood mindset. The second is to get rid of the Western culture, which the West, by its occupation, implanted into our societies, especially when it comes to all kinds of ideologies: liberalism, modernism, socialism, communism, democracy. Democracy is totally unacceptable there. Nationalism, patriotism, all these isms which were imported from Europe since the mid-19th century, the spring of nations. So all these things which are definitely against Islam, especially democracy, because democracy is equality between citizens, Muslims, Christians, Jews, infidels. Okay, totally unacceptable. Democracy is equality of women. In Islam, forget it. Equality of the LGBTQX communities, totally unacceptable in Islam. Freedom of speech, totally unacceptable. Freedom of religion, freedom from religion. In Islam, if you announce that you leave Islam, you know what will happen to you. Okay? So all these components, which are basic components of democracy, cannot exist in Islam. So this is why democracy as a whole cannot be implemented. Maybe elections, but in elections, you know, it doesn't matter. Already Stalin found out it doesn't matter who votes. What matters is who counts. Okay? So democracy as a whole is totally unacceptable in Islamic societies. And the West, which controlled the Arab and Islamic world, tries all the time to push Western ideas. We see the Ba'ath parties in Iraq and Syria. We see the Socialist Party in Egypt, the Arab socialism of Gamal Abdel Nasser. We see even Trotskyism in southern Yemen, which was in the 90s. We see all kinds of ideologies which came from Europe, based on European culture, based on European experience, based on European beliefs, which cannot implement anything from these ideologies in the Islamic world, which operates doing to totally different rules. Not only this, a very important component of Westernism infiltrated into the Islamic societies, which is the gender issues. All kinds of rights of women, that a woman wants to be a lonely wife of a man. She doesn't want polygamy or bigamy. Excuse me, what? The Quran says that a man can marry 2, 3, and 4. So who are you, the wife, to tell your husband not to marry more wives? Okay? Because she thinks in a Western way. She wants to be a partner, not a walking womb. Okay? Women and work. Very problematic in Islam. What? To work under supervision of a man? Under the pressures of an employer? Totally unacceptable.
And so 100 years ago, you're saying the Muslim Brotherhood forms as a reaction against this.
Against this. So, first, against the occupation. Second, against the culture which the occupation inserted by force into our societies. And the third pillar is to implement the Sharia. After we get rid of the occupation, Western occupation, and its collaborators from our rulers, and we get rid of the Western culture, which infiltrated into our societies, and now we have to implement the Sharia. These are the three pillars on which the Muslim Brotherhood stands. Now, when they look at the modern world, definitely it works very well everywhere, in every place. They have to get rid of the government in Britain. This is why they come to replace Britain, to replace the people. It can take 100 years. They have patience. In the Quran, there is a verse which says, "In Allah ma'as sabirin." Allah is with those who have patience, and they have patience a lot. So they migrate little by little, and according to what is being possible in Britain or in France, in other European countries, and they already see how Europe is actually dying, and they are striving. So this is what we see today in Europe, and they came to establish their Islamic states in Europe. You can see it in neighborhoods like East London. You can see it in Paris, in Saint-Denis, in Barbès. You can see it in Molenbeek, in Brussels. You can see it in Marseille. You can see it in Lyon. You can see it in Rotterdam.
Do you see this as a deliberate conspiracy, or is it a sort of cultural tendency that's done unconsciously?
Definitely consciously. Once they exceed a certain percentage, they start demanding all kinds of things. Halal food in the supermarket. Then they demand not to have pork in the supermarket because they don't want to see it, they don't want to smell it. Then they don't want alcoholic beverages in supermarkets. Then they demand to shut down the bells of churches.
Where are these policies that you're seeing them banning of pig meat at supermarkets?
Once they exceed, let's say, 51% of a place, now they have the majority. And you can see it in local behavior of municipalities or townships in Britain. You can see it in France. Another thing which they are very much against are churches. They hate churches because churches are more pretty than the mosques in many cases, and the churches have bells. They hate churches. This is why they set fire in churches. I suspect that even the Notre Dame was arson deliberately. I have no idea if it's correct or not, but this is what my feeling. I have a feeling that it was not by chance, started to burn by itself. This is what I feel. And look, they open madrasas everywhere, they open mosques everywhere, because they came to Europe in order to become, to bring the Islamic world to Europe. They didn't come to work temporarily and go back to their countries.
So is this what you would call jihad?
Jihad has many facets. Yes, it is a migration jihad. Jihad as a concept, by the way, literally, jihad means effort. Effort which the Islamic community makes in order to make the word of Allah superior and the word of the infidels inferior. This is the jihad. It could be the what called the jihad saif, means jihad by sword, means weapons. The belligerent jihad. It could be jihad by migration. It could be jihad by birthright. It's also kind of jihad. Jihad da'wah means to call people to come to Islam nicely. It's also kind of jihad. Media jihad, like Al Jazeera, which spreads Islamism all over the world, and the havoc and terrorism, like what they do. So this is also a media jihad. Open WhatsApp group which will promote the jihad is another kind of jihad. The arson jihad, in order to destroy the infidels and build the Islamic state on the ruins of the Christians. And of course, they also have the prayer jihad. If you cannot do economic jihad like boycotting the West or boycotting Israel, BDS, all these things, if you cannot go to fight with the sword, if you cannot set fire in a church, if you can do anything, whatever you do, you can do, you pray for the success of jihadists, whether in Palestine, whether in Iraq, or wherever they are. Pray for that. This is also part of the jihad.
So in a moment, I'll ask you about personal internal jihad, which we sometimes hear of, maybe a struggle not to assimilate with Western societies that you're part of. But I do want to jump in at this point and just ask, are you suggesting then that all Muslims in Europe, Britain, America, all immigrants have this effectively conspiracy of jihad?
Not at all. Not at all. There are many migrants from the Islamic world who, once they come to Europe, they become Europeans. They merge into the European societies and they become Europeans. For example, they would eat whatever falls on their plate. They will drink whatever is being poured into the glass. And they became European in everything, in their culture, in their food, in their clothing, in their behavior. And they have nothing against Europe. They don't come. They come to become Europeans. Nobody should have any problem with these people. They are good people because they came to be Europeans. Look, there is a good example to this. A lady, a Muslim lady in France. Her name is Rashida Dati. She was from a Moroccan family, Muslim Moroccan family. She was born in France, and she was excellent in school. She got stipends from the government to study in high education, and she studied law, and she became a very famous lawyer in France, and everybody loved her because she was a bright lawyer, an honest lawyer, and Sarkozy, more than 20 years ago, nominated her to be the Minister of Justice. Everybody blessed this nomination because she was professional. But she was not married. She was in mid-30s of her age. And one day, everybody sees that the lady is pregnant. And she's not married. Now, according to Islam, this is adultery. And her verdict is well known. But in France, you don't look at these parts of the body. All you look is the face, that's all. All the other parts is not your business in France. You can do with your body whatever you like, with whoever you like, whenever you like, and it's nobody's business. So the Islamic community started to discuss this issue. Is she a Muslim and therefore should be punished for being pregnant without marriage? Or she's French. And as a French, that's all. You cannot talk about anything else because it's not of your business. So how to relate to this lady? As a Muslim, because she was born a Muslim, or as a French, because she's acting like a French. Okay, so this shows you that there are people who definitely become French or British or whatever, and nobody should have any problem with them, because they are integrated fully into the European society. The problems are with those who are not integrated, who preserve their culture, continue their tradition, continue their mindset, continue view the West as infidel, something which should be abolished, because, as you said, to end the occupation, it's also occupation of France, because Christians are infidels. They don't have the right to rule. They don't have the right to a state. They should all live as the thing is under the rule of Islam. You can read the book of Bat Yaor, Islam and Dimitude. Christians and Jews should live under the yoke of Islam and pay the jizya to the Muslims. And this is what should be in France and every other place in Europe. The Europeans should be subjugated to Islam. Why? Because this is how the world should go, according to the Muslim Brotherhood ideas. Now, the Muslim Brotherhood is a very large array of ideas about how fast do we want to implement all these things. Means how radical we are, or we should be, in order to implement all these ideas of Islam. If you are silent, if you are, let's say, slow, it can take 100 years, you are moderate. But you dream about this, you don't do much in order to hasten this process. But if you want it now, Islamism now, you become more radical, because you have to implement these ideas by force. And here, people differ from each other on this like a big spectrum of radicalism within the Muslim Brotherhood thinking. Look, in Egypt they had a Murshid al-A'la, means the supreme guide, a guy named who died in the 80s. He says, we are du'at la kudat. This was the name of his book. Means we are preachers, we are not judges. Means we preach. We try to approach people. We try to convince them in a good way to come to Islam and to become more adherent to Islam. This is what we do. Very moderate. On the other side, they have Said Qutb in Egypt also, one of the Muslim Brotherhood, who says any ruler who does not implement the Sharia today deserves a jihad against him, even though his name is Muhammad, because he is the long hand of the West. Okay? So he was very radical. There were people who were even more radical. So they came out, like Gamal Islamiyah, like the jihad in Egypt, the Nagun min al-Nar, Takfir wa Hikra, all these Egyptian organizations which were much more radical, even than Said Qutb. So they came out, and they were the offshoots of the Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Qaeda is another offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, and ISIS is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. Means all these radical Sunni organizations came out from the school of thought of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is why the Muslim Brotherhood is so a dangerous organization, because the teachings of this organization could be implemented in a very, very radical way, like ISIS.
So it's a question of jihad now or jihad later, basically.
More or less, yes. Look, jihad, you can do it now by peaceful means, like BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel, for example. It could be by arson, it could be by migration, it could be by birth. You don't have to fight. You can achieve the goals of the jihad without shooting even one bullet, as Gaddafi said. It's enough if we migrate to Europe and we give children, 6, 7, 8 per woman. We'll take Europe in no time.
So how does Europe effectively fireproof itself, bulletproof itself against what you're describing? And not just Europe, America. We know, of course, that Trump is intending to outlaw the Muslim Brotherhood.
Because he knows that the Atlantic Ocean is not wide enough to keep America safe from the same problem. Actually, what you see today in America is what you saw in Europe 15 years ago. Mayor here, mayor there, parliament members, they started already 15 years ago in Europe.
So do you see Mamdani as part of that, for
Yeah,
example?
of course. Definitely. Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, he was not Jewish.
He says he wasn't Muslim.
Okay, Hussein.
You're saying that there is effectively a coordinated conspiracy of Islam, which includes and incorporates Barack Hussein Obama, Zoran Mamdani, Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. All of these people are foot soldiers in a conquest of the West, whether they say so or think so or not.
Look, you use the word conspiracy. Conspiracy has the meaning of something which is being done behind the scenes by all kinds of deception. No, this is being done openly. This is being done, they don't even try to hide. Look, they have this explanatory memorandum, which was found in the 90s in the investigation of the Holy Land Foundation in Florida. And the booklet, 16 pages, of the goals of the group, means the Muslim Brotherhood in America, they actually explanatory memorandum. They explain clearly, openly, what their goals are, is to settle in America in order to turn America into an Islamic land as part of the global Islamic state.
And you think it's working?
When they see the process, which started, let's say, 40, 50, I just take a number, 50 years ago, when migration to Europe started to be from Algeria to France, all these things, you can see the trend, you can see the line, you can see the direction. The charts of the Islamic population which moves to Europe, the charts of number of mosques in Europe, number of madrasas, number of organizations which are designed to implement these ideas. Look, in 2007, 18 years ago, more than 8 years, was June 2000, I took part in a meeting of the heads of the intelligence European organizations which are dealing with Islam. They met somewhere in Europe. I was invited for two purposes. One is to give them a paper about Israel, how Israel deals with Muslim Brotherhood, because the Muslim Brotherhood was the topic of that meeting already 2007, 18 years ago, 18 and a half years ago. And since we do have in Israel also Muslim Brotherhood, they wanted to learn from the Israeli experience how a democratic state deals with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, did Israel do so well at that?
Today, one of the two Muslim Brotherhood organizations is outlawed. But then in 2007, it was still before it became outlawed. So they invited me for two purposes. One is to present a paper about the Muslim Brotherhood in Israel and how the state deals with them. And the second purpose is to take part in the discussions. Maybe I can, give them all kinds of ideas about Europe. The opening session was about the situation of Muslim Brotherhood in Europe, and I emphasize it was 2007. The chart was of the FOI, Fédération Organisation Islamiste in Europe. It was already then very dense web of NGOs, of companies, hedge funds, real estate company, all kinds of companies, all are connected with each other under the ideas of the Muslim Brotherhood and the people who ran the Muslim Brotherhood in Europe. So when I saw this, I couldn't hold myself. I said, how do you allow such a situation? So like 4 or 5 of them immediately raised their hands and went like this. Means our hands are tied. By whom? By the politicians. Because these are professionals, they are the researchers. But the politicians actually impose on them the policies of allowing those organizations to flourish.
Why?
Why? Because politicians want to be either re-elected or elected. So they compete who will give more benefits to the migrants. Because once you have a neighborhood of migrants in your constituency, now all the candidates feel that they want to recruit them to their side, so they compete who will give them more.
So in a game of, paper, scissors, stone, Islam, as you're painting it, and the Muslim Brotherhood, is a stone to the West's democratic scissors. There's no way that democracies in the West can stand up against what you've just described, right?
Of course. Because according to democratic ideas, if somebody doesn't kill you or blows a bomb in your car or somewhere, you cannot do anything to him. You cannot deport him, you cannot do anything. Only when he actually acts against a very clear law that you shouldn't kill or something like this. But if he opens a madrasa and teaches the kids about migration, how we migrated to this country, which will be one day our country, what law does he breach?
So you mentioned this was 2007, you said?
2007, yes.
2025 today. What's your prescription today for Europe?
Much worse, the situation. Way much more.
Not the prognosis, the prescription. How will Europe deal with this problem?
Well, a friend of mine once calculated, how can Europe return to be European? First of all, he says, every woman should give birth, whether married or not married, should give birth to 8 children.
Well, we can't do that.
Wait a minute. And the 4 girls in average, which everyone will have to have.
But I thought you were looking at this bit, not this bit.
For 3 generations. No, for the European nations to become European again, which they don't need any migration. So for 3 generations, every woman should give birth to 8 children, boys and girls together.
But don't you sound exactly like you just described the Islamist sounding?
Otherwise, let me tell you, in 50 years, there will be preservations of white people with blonde hair and blue eyes. And in some cases, they will be held in cages, like in a zoo, for the visitors to see how once human beings were in Europe. I'm telling you, this is what's going to be in Europe.
I want to ask you, are you an extremist?
No, I'm talking about the trend, about the flow, about the direction, about the charts. It's not statistics, it's mathematics. Because you can calculate it. The birth rate and what will be the consequences. Europe will see. Look, Douglas Murray wrote this magnificent book, The Strange Death of Europe. What? Isn't this serious? He is right. Every word which you wrote in this book is weighed by gold.
So not in terms of what needs to happen, say every woman giving birth to 8 children, but in terms of mentally what needs to happen. How will Europe be awakened to what you're painting as the terminal decline, the terminal problem of Europeanness?
Look, unfortunately, as much as I understand, Europeans look at the building which they live in and maybe the building next one, or maybe the other side of the street. That's what they see. If they don't see too many Muslims in this neighborhood, they sit still. They don't do anything. They don't care that the next neighborhood became totally Islamic. They don't care. Why? Because it's not my business. I live in my home, and what, in 50 years?
But wait,
I want to be living.
I hear what you're saying, but so what you're saying though is, you know, I want to ask you a distinction here, because you use they a lot about Muslims in how we've talked so far. And then when I asked you about it, you said, yeah, there are plenty of immigrants or plenty of Muslims who aren't pursuing the agenda that you've described as the Muslim Brotherhood Islamist agenda. They have, you said, integrated.
The Muslim Brotherhood is the spearhead of this process, because for them to end the Christian occupation is not only in Egypt and Syria, it's the occupation of France and Britain. Why? Because Christians, as people who are not Muslims, have no right to a state. They should live under the Islamic yoke. And this is what they think, because this is the Sharia. And I told you, the third pillar is to implement the Sharia.
So do you see any distinction then between the Muslim Brotherhood and Islam, between Islamism and Islam?
Islamism is the willingness to implement Islam wherever it is not ruling in the place. This is, in my view, the meaning of Islamism. Okay, Islam. Look, if your Islam is that you pray 5 times a day, if you fast on Ramadan 30 days or 29, if you give money to the needy, if you go to Mecca once in lifetime to perform the Hajj, if you perform everything on yourself, I have no problem at all. At all. Do with yourself whatever you like. Once you spread these ideas on others, once you want to implement it on others, you become Islamist. Especially if the others are not your children, which you do have the right to educate them according to your views until a certain age. Since they are 18, you cannot, I think it's useless at the age of 10. But you didn't educate them until the age of 10, forget it. They will never internalize. However, if you impose these ideas on others who are not Muslims, this is Islamism. Okay? So, and this is actually what the Muslim Brotherhood want, to impose the Islamic ideas of, especially the Islamic statehood, on the whole world. By the way, the coins which ISIS made, on one side it said the number of dinars, 1, 5, 10, and the other side was a picture of the whole world without borders. Why? Because Allah created the world without borders. The borders were marked by the infidels, and they actually made wars between each other. Once the entire world will be Islamic, it will have Pax Islamica, means Islamic peace. Everybody will live peacefully with each other, and the end of the problems of the world will come under the Islamic state.
This is Dar al-Salam.
Dar al-Islam means the House of Islam, which will be Salam means peace, will reign all over the world, because there will be no differences between people.
It sounds like John Lennon, right? So the point I'm asking is, how does the West, how do Europeans, how do Americans react when you tell them this?
Those who see the future tomorrow and don't look after tomorrow, they definitely reject it. But what do you mean? I have a very good neighbor, he is a good Muslim, and a nice family which lives right across the hall from us. And what do you talk about? The Muslims here are the drivers, are the people in the pharmacies, you know, they work in the truck drivers, they are the blue collar workers in our factories. Without them, we couldn't run the place. What do you mean? They are the best people on earth. They came to help us to run the economy. Okay, some people will tell you this thing. On the other side, some people will tell you they take over all the areas of activity, economic activity. They became the the merchants in in the stores. They became the drivers. They took everything. And when they go on Ramadan, means they fast. We don't have public transportation because they are at home fasting in the Ramadan or in the festives. Definitely, we cannot live in such a way. Depends on your standpoint. Some will tell you this is great. Some will tell you this is impossible. On the same situation.
Is it racist to oppose that?
Oppose what? If you oppose, I'm not saying oppose the migration if they come to integrate into the society.
Well, how do you test that?
You look, you can say, hey guys, I want to see you integrating. No, I don't want to see madrasas. You go to the public schools, public, and the British or whatever school curriculum you will learn exactly like the others, no exception. Okay, this is one thing. Second thing, what do you mean halal? Halal? We don't believe in halal. You eat what we eat. Otherwise, you go back to your country.
Where's freedom of religion, though? It's a Central European belief.
Islam is not only religion. It is religion, but not only. Islam is also politics, economy, and every aspect of public life and the economic life. It is everything. So this is not only religion. Christianity could be defined as only religion. Judaism could be defined as only religion. But Islam is a scheme for all the aspects of life.
Are you opposed then to Islam?
No. I would even adopt some things from Islam. For example, the ban on alcoholic beverages.
You don't drink?
I drink a little bit. But no, but I was saying, look, alcohol beverages are good, definitely. But the price which the Western world is paying for alcohol is tremendous. How many wives were beaten by drunk husbands who come home and don't know what they do? How many road accidents happen because of people who are driving under alcohol? How many road accidents? How many liver diseases people have? The price of alcohol is tremendous, especially when it comes to battered wives. The price which the societies pay for alcohol is too much. Price is tremendous. So this is why I would implement.
You know who else doesn't drink? Donald Trump.
I don't know.
Doesn't, not a drop.
Look, when it comes to me as a Jew, we do,
Kiddush?
Kiddush, sanctification of the Sabbath. You can do it on grape juice.
Do you?
Yes, when I don't want to get drunk, I do it on grape juice. This is 100%. You don't necessarily need alcoholic beverages.
This is very interesting to me because I think a lot of people listening, firstly, might be shocked. Secondly, might be terrified. But thirdly, might have thought that what you were saying was you're totally opposed to Islam. And actually you're saying, no, there's a lot of things that the West can learn from Islam. Alcohol's one you're mentioning. What are the others? And is it possible
Fraternity.
that, pause that 1 second, because I just want to ask, is it possible that the method of countering the situation you've just described is actually to learn a lot from how the other side got there?
Look, Islam has positive aspects as well. Fraternity. Look, the hadith means the quotation from Muhammad, what he said, quotes Muhammad saying that the whole Islamic community, which there is from Indonesia in the west, in the east, all the way to Hawaii in the east, opposite, is like the human body. If you have a wound in your foot, you will have fever in your head. Means you are united. If a Muslim let's say in Morocco, suffers, so the people, the Muslims in Indonesia, feel very bad about this and will come to help him. Because we are like one body, who, if you have a wound in your foot, you will have fever in your head. Okay? I think the fraternity, which is expressed by this saying of the Prophet Muhammad, is excellent. That everybody feels, just look at the individualism of today. How lonely feel today people in the West, when they are detached from the family, live as individuals. This, by the way, they take dogs because the dog is appreciative to what you give him. Because of the deterioration of the family. I think that in Islam, they still keep the family as the framework for everybody. And this is excellent. Very good. This is how Western society should have been. But unfortunately, the deterioration of the West is partially the deterioration of the status of the family. This is why people don't get married. Why get married? Why should we? Lose our freedom?
So is the death of Europe, the death of the West, in your view, a result of not just the decline of those traditional values, but the decline of religion?
Definitely. Definitely. Christianity once was the spirit of Europe. Today, in France, I read recently from the French, the number or the ratio of French people who saw a church from within is 4%. And those are French people. Look, France is a country which a few hundred years ago, the Catholics slaughtered the Protestants, the Huguenots, because they were not Catholics. To that degree, some 100 years ago, France was religious, Catholic religious. Today, 4% saw a church from within during their life. This is what I mean, the deterioration of religion.
So in a way, you fight fire with fire, you fight religion with religion. But if I'm understanding it correctly, the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamism, saw effectively a strength in returning to a sort of what they saw as a purer, more traditional version of the religion, first starting at society level and building to a political. Are you suggesting the same for the West?
Again, as long as the Islamic religion is a religion only, means prayer, fasting, go to Hajj, and feel fraternity with your family and keep your family as a unit, functioning unit, it's okay. Nobody can have anything against it. Once it becomes something to take over the country,
conquest,
and to convince others to convert to Islam, all these things, this is where the problem starts.
But can that be separated from Islam?
No, there are schools of thoughts in Islam, like the Sufis. They are the spiritual people. They are Hasbi Rabbi, as they say. The only thing which I have is my Lord. That's all. I don't care about politics. I don't care about economy. I don't care about anything. It could be Christian, it could be Jewish, it could be Muslim. It doesn't matter. And definitely they don't fight against anybody. And this is like 5% of Islam, of the Islamic world, the Sufis. They are not problem for anybody.
Mainstream Islam, I'm asking, is it separable from
there is
what
no
is
such a thing, mainstream? There are sects and groups, and every place is described by the group which took it over.
The majority?
The majority has no meaning, because when a minority is violent, it takes over the stage, because it's violent. If the majority is not violent, the majority has no meaning. And the minority, which is violent, imposes its ideas on others. Look, the no-go zones, which you have too many. In Britain, for example, what do you no-go zones? They don't want women, wearing short skirts, for example. They don't allow alcoholic beverages.
You have those here as well, Mea Sherim and what have you.
Yes, but in most cases they are not violent. In the no-go zones, they might be very violent. Look, a boy and a girl can sit on a bench in the street and kiss. In these no-go zones, forget it. Even if they love each other.
What's the answer then? You said Trump, Trump recognizes this, in your opinion. And what can Trump do in America? What can America do? What can Europe do? What can Britain do to counter what is effectively, from you, an incredibly disastrous, pessimistic outlook?
There is one criterion which definitely can incriminate, and this is the money. Money which being sent to terror organizations is designated by the law. For example, if they collect money for Hamas, of ISIS, or collect volunteers to go to fight in ISIS, as they did in Europe 10 years ago, or send money to Al Qaeda or things like this. If you can catch somebody who actually does this, this is totally against the law, against even laws which exist. You can deport him. And you know what? The most amazing thing is that European countries allowed fighters from ISIS, after ISIS was crashed, to come back to France, to Britain, to other countries. Excuse me? People who became experts in slaughtering people or blowing them, with bombs and shooting them indiscriminately. What do you think? They will come back to the Britain and France, which anyway are not their original birthplace, and what, they become lawyers and accountants? What did they think when they allowed them to come back? In Israel, we didn't allow them. And there were like 50 Israeli Muslims who went to ISIS. They were not allowed to come back. Israel told them, you chose to go to ISIS, good luck. One came back. He was over 2 weeks, and he saw what this is, and he repented, and he came back. Israel allowed him, and he's going to school after school and talks to the kids. Don't get into this net or this trap of Islamism and radicalism, because I almost fell into this. Okay, so he was allowed to come back.
So what you're talking about is the need for an awakening in the West, the non-Muslim world. What's the Mordechai Kedar way, 5-point plan, let's say, or make it 10 if you prefer, to wake up everyone to what you're talking about, other than this podcast?
To go visit Luton, for example, and to see what happened there.
You've been speaking to Tommy Robinson, I guess.
Whoever tries to shake the bell, to ring the bell, to wake people up. Hey guys, look at your next generation. Are you willing to keep Britain as British? Are you willing to keep France as French? Are you willing to keep Holland, the Netherlands? Is it culture? Is it today or not? If you give up, let us know, and we'll know that you give up. But I think, unfortunately, people don't look at the future. They don't think about the future.
So go and see it somewhere else where it's worked.
Go see what happened to a neighborhood named Barbès in Paris, which became a kasbah, means the downtown of Arab town. Dirty, unplanned, stinky. I was there. I almost fainted. Something which is, and you know what? In Europe, the architecture is very important. You see the buildings, the windows, the balconies, the railings. Especially classical Europe, which was the buildings which are built in 19th century, 20th century, are very nice design, and the design is part of the face of the town. Today, when a neighborhood becomes Islamic, you see in every balcony a dish. Big dish. Could come to 2 meters.
A satellite dish.
Satellite dish. Why satellite dish? They don't want to intercept the local TV, because local TV is not so modest at some hours of the day, of the night. Okay, and they don't want their children to be exposed to what is going on in the local channels. So they want to connect to Arabsat or Nilesat, which are Islamic, and there you don't see porn or everything or things like this. So this is why they have these dishes, in order to not to be part of the. Why don't they have one dish on the roof and it will be divided to all the apartments? Because some of them are from Morocco, some of them from Algeria, some of them from Iraq and Afghanistan. They don't speak the same languages, so they intercept different transponders. So this is how it works. And unfortunately, the authorities, which should have implemented and enforced the law of zoning and planning, which is definitely deals with the face of the building or the of the side which faces the street, they don't care, because in these neighborhoods nobody dares to go and tell them anything, because then what will happen to you if you are an official which come from the municipality and tell them to do this or not to do this? What will happen to you? I don't want to be your life insurance agent.
So, to sum up, what's the future? Are you an optimist or a pessimist?
When it comes to Europe, total pessimist. Total pessimist, because I see the trend, and I see that there is absolutely no rejection. Okay, you saw one big demonstration in London. How many people were there? Hundreds of thousands, with a Union Jack flag, and Israel flag, by the way, as well. And don't forget that the Palestinian flag is only a fig leaf to cover the Islamism which they want to spread there. So, okay, we saw the demonstration. Do the right in Europe make more babies? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe in the margin. So, what is the solution of the right? Never mind the left, which has no solution. What is the right offering to Europe? Let's say in Germany you see this AfD, the alternative for Deutschland. What do they offer to change the tide, to change the direction of Germany? I have no idea. They want to get rid of the Turks. Okay, who will replace them? Who will be the taxi drivers? Who will be the bus drivers? Who will be the workers in Mercedes and BMW and Audi? Who will assemble cars? Who will work in telephone camp? Who will work in AEG? Okay, because all these migrants work there. Of course, the Germans are the managers and the engineers, but the people on the ground are migrants.
So who's getting it right in the world?
I don't know who is getting it right, but I'm saying, first of all, in Israel, you see people and you hear people who talk about the reality, because they see it. And in many cases, we Israelis, we talk about problems, because if we don't talk, we will sink to the same swamp like the Europeans. And we do here, look, we put a fence in the south to prevent the mass migration which we had here. And now we are trying to encourage unsettled migrants in other countries willingly. Okay? Where is the problem? We want to keep our country. We want to keep our nation. We want to keep our culture. Unfortunately, many in Europe see us as that we are bigots and we are Islamophobes and we are racists. No, we want to keep our identity. We came back to our forefathers' land not in order to become another Britain. If we wanted to stay in Britain, we would stay in Britain. We came back to our forefathers' land in order to renew Jewish life as a community, as a nation, as a people, with agenda, Jewish agenda. Yes, there are many countries in the world which those migrants can find and have much better life. In Israel, we have wars every time and again. We have economic problems. Israel is not the best place on earth. But why should they be here? They should look for a better place, like Britain, which gives them many more benefits.
Thanks. I appreciate that. So, well, on that pessimistic note, I think you've answered the question, pessimist or optimist. But I do appreciate.
Look, what we should do, and I hope this podcast will do, will open the eyes of the Europeans to look at their neighborhood, not their own neighborhoods, but the next neighborhood, what is happening there. Because what happens there will be in your neighborhood in 5 years,
but
10 years.
And what you're calling for, though, this is what I'm trying to get at. It's an injection of pride and a resurgence of joy in what you feel you represent or historically represented, rather than necessarily an animosity towards what's coming. Or is it both?
Look, it's inevitable. If you don't stop it, it doesn't go anywhere. It becomes bigger and bigger by birth, by migration. And look, I never blame those who make children for the changes of demography. I blame those who do not have children. That's how it works.
Go forth and multiply.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for talking with me. I really appreciate it. It's a terrifying message, but one that I know you are very keen to spread, and that is important to you to spread around the world. So I appreciate it.
If somebody suffers from a lethal disease, you cannot tell him that he has the flu, and this is why he doesn't feel okay. You should tell him, yes, you are in a problem, and you should cooperate, and you should do something, because otherwise it's the end of you. Okay, as it is in hospital. If you want the cooperation of a patient, if you can cooperate, you have to tell him the situation. You cannot hide it from him. Otherwise, why should he cooperate with medications which he doesn't like if he doesn't know his situation? We have, through this podcast, we have to ring the bell to tell. And you know what? We didn't talk about the judicial system, which definitely castrates the ability of European nations to fight this Islamism, which is imposed on them by those migrants. So okay, and the decisions, real decisions of the judicial system, which is part of the problem. Yes, we have to talk about all these problems in order to maybe do something. Otherwise, like the frog in the pan.
Mordechai Kedar, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Was it a pleasure?
No.
Okay.